Now, here's Michael Smerconish.
So there's an essay in my social media, and you're about to meet its author. It includes these words: I began using social media several months before the 2020 election to monitor the extremist elements that were taking control of the Republican Party, a party that I had spent my life in, but no longer recognized. My goal at first was to share what I observed with moderate Republicans who may have been persuaded to vote for Joe Biden and not Trump. I wanted to show them that what was once a fringe element of the party was now on full display and spreading. After the election, however, it became clear that much of the MAGA movement was not going to accept the outcome, not with all the conspiracy theories and the constant sentiment of mistrust in our institutions coming from its leaders. At first, the most commonly expressed views were that the courts, local election officials loyal to the cause, the military, or Trump himself would keep the president in power. But after Trump's December 19 tweet, the reaction of those I was monitoring cannot be overstated. They viewed it as an order, a call to arms. They began planning, and I began documenting how these groups were organizing, preparing for, threatening, and intending to engage in violence. The author is Ron Filipkowski. He's a former Marine, state and federal prosecutor. He's now a criminal defense attorney in private practice based in Florida, where, by the way, he served on their judicial nominating commission. The essay that he published was in the Washington Post. Ron, thank you so much for being on my program. I appreciate it.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
So your argument in short order is that through happenstance, it sounds, you began documenting the rise of what turned out to be violent elements, and you think they're still at it. Is that fair?
Yeah, we saw after January 6th, they kind of all went underground. We were keeping an eye on what they were up to. But I think a lot of them at that time were keeping their heads down and their mouths shut, hoping they weren't going to get arrested. And then they started poking their heads out of the rabbit holes in March and April, reforming new groups, new organizations, fanning out around the country, and really shifting their focus on local governments, school boards, city commissions, county commissions, supervisors of elections. And those are now what they're targeting.
Well, to your point, I was born and raised in a suburban Philadelphia community and went to the public schools K through 12. I don't recognize what's going on in my school district. It was recently the subject of a New York Times front page story because the elements you're describing are now making a move on that school board. And I see signs of it going all across the country. Is it orchestrated, or is this all just organically taking place because these elements have now been stoked?
It's very orchestrated. I mean, we documented it all throughout the summer on social media. We saw the different characters like Michael Flynn and Steve Bannon, and there's this guy, Clay Clark, who does it, Moms for Liberty. We saw all these organizations form, and it started out really about masks, and in-person schooling and whether we were going to have that. But then the CRT people like your Charlie Kirks, your Ben Shapiro's, who are behind all of that, got involved and started to organize. And we saw them sending out scripts to people. They moved people around the country. They flew people into different school districts and school areas to speak at these meetings. So a lot of the people speaking were not parents, and they had scripts prepared by these leaders, national leaders, and their whole plan and goal was to disrupt school board meetings with the idea that they would make it as difficult and as miserable as possible to serve on a school board, get a lot of these people to quit, retire, not run again, and replace them with some real right-wing MAGA people. And that's exactly what's happening. Their plan is working.
Two researchers offered to help me anonymously. I've been a criminal lawyer for almost 3 decades, first as a federal and state prosecutor, now as a defense attorney. My background, combined with research skills of my team, has allowed us to monitor and track right-wing groups across a wide array of platforms. We watch obscure live stream events. We listen to podcasts and radio broadcasts. I have attended events in person. We now follow influencers and organizers wherever they are on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Parler, Gab, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you've been in the trenches monitoring since before the election or just after the election?
Since before. We really, it really started with the first Stop the Steal rally. People forget that January 6th was the third one. They had two in DC before that. So we started monitoring that. And I link up with a lot of independent, I guess would call street journalists, people that go into rallies. We work together. I suggest places for them to go. They go, they send me video. I will note that a lot of these characters, what they say in their own private groups, meetings, where there's 50 people there, 100 people there, no media, everybody there is on their side. What they say in those places is very different than what they say on TV or in a press conference.
How so?
Well, they're much more explicit. I mean, we've shown that repeatedly with our clips on Twitter, where we've outed them saying some really extreme things, like, for example, Michael Flynn saying there should be one religion in this country. What we posted that on Twitter. We broke that story. He said that in a very small group. And there's been many things like that. So we go into these things either anonymously or we sign up for them with fake accounts and we record and we just listen, or we monitor people that are in the audience who are posting videos and photos and stuff onto social media. And then we grab them and we post them.
So I take it you weren't surprised by the nasty turn taken on January 6th.
No, you can look at my Twitter page from December 19th to January 6th. I predicted every single day that there was going to be a violent attack on the Capitol. It's all still there. So I'm not making this up. Because we were monitoring the Proud Boys. We were monitoring the Oath Keepers. We were monitoring Roger Stone, Alex Jones, Ali Alexander, Patrick Byrne, all the organizers of that January 6th rally. We were reading everything that they were posting and everything they were saying to each other. And we posted it all on social media. And what we got back was, look, the first two Stop the Steal rallies were duds. They fizzled. Hardly anybody showed up. Really nothing happened. You're being reactionary. You're overreacting. You're being a fearmonger. And what I kept saying was, this is different. What makes this rally different than the other two is Trump is directly organizing this one. He's directly involved.
You're the perfect person for me to ask this question. So initially, I believed that the events of January 6th happened organically. Trump stoked up that crowd. Some of them crossed the line, broke into the Capitol, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. By reading all of the books that have come out and paying very close attention to what's now in the public domain, now I say this was a very complicated, planned attack, which included the Jenna Ellis memo, the John Eastman memo, giving legal heft in the White House to the idea that, hey, this is lawful. We can get this done. They leaned on Pence. They leaned on the Justice Department to, in turn, lean on Georgia to try and support all those recounts in the states. In other words, a lot of moving parts. But the piece of this that I just don't understand is, how, if at all, was word communicated to the boots on the ground? We want you to break into the Capitol. And why was there no plan for the guy with the horns and others like him who got into the Capitol and then seemed clueless? Like, can you fill in that blank for me?
I think so. I will say this. Those groups looked for what they called bat signals from Trump, or more specifically from Dan Scavino, who they look to. What they believed is that Dan Scavino, communications person for Trump still, would send out things on social media in code, and they would decipher that code, whether it was a video clip, whether it was sort of an opaque message. And I would watch when Trump would send out a tweet or Scavino would send out a tweet, how these characters who have all been arrested would interpret those things. And the way that they were interpreting what Trump was saying and what Scavino was putting out was, this is what he wants us to do. I think Trump was slick enough or smart enough not to be explicit. So when he would use words like, we got to go down to the Capitol and fight like hell to save our country, the way they interpret that fight like hell is quite literal. Now he has the cover to step back and go, well, by fight, I didn't mean actual physical fights, but that he knew full well how they were interpreting his words. Look, they staged the lumber for the gallows. There was a lot of lumber to build that gallows. It was staged the night before. They had body armor, as I put in my article, the night before. They had stab-proof vests. They brought bear spray. It was all very coordinated and orchestrated.
Do you think that we're going to find out that from the Willard hotel room, war room the night before, there were explicit instructions given to those who breached the Capitol?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we've posted some video that we got from the Willard Hotel from Alex Jones that we found that was pretty obscure, and some other things. Clearly, all the players were there for whatever reason. They all migrated there. Flynn, Jones, the whole crew was there. Now, what they were communicating directly with the boots on the ground people, that's something that I think if the January 6th committee is going to have to crack, because
Ron, when you were seeing all these signs, in the build up to January 6th, were you sounding the alarm with law enforcement?
Yeah, everything that we had, we were sending to the FBI, whether that was the right place to send it to. That's what we were doing.
Did they pay attention to you?
We did that afterwards. Well, I never got anything directly back from them. No, I mean, I was just some guy on social media with a few thousand followers at that time.
So I'm trying to understand, like, in a good way, what's your deal? So you're a Marine, you're a former prosecutor, you're a disaffected Republican. Are you still a Republican, by the way?
I switched on January 7th
to
Democrat.
To Democrat. So you don't recognize your party. I feel the same way. I'm in that same boat. You saw troubling signs. You started paying attention, gathering data, never knowing initially where it was going to lead, but rather because you wanted to be able to show friends, hey, this is not the Republican Party of our youth. And it just turned into this ongoing investigation and project that you continue today, monitoring the elements that you've described.
Yeah, it really was. That's all I was trying to do, was show moderate, independent type Republicans that, because I had put my head in the sand for so long during the Trump years and ignored the news and hid from the news. And, during COVID, when we were locked down, I was forced to watch the Trump press conferences every day like everybody else. And that's when I really started to say, I've got to do something. And so, yes, it was monitoring the leaders of the MAGA movement led me to discover their connections to an affiliation with some of these paramilitary groups like the Oath Keepers and the Three Percenters. Heck, Don Jr. has worn Three Percenters gear, clothing.
Do you feel your safety is in jeopardy?
Yeah, for sure. Because I decided to put my name on it after January 6th. I was anonymous, like the two people who helped me. And I just decided that I have to show them that I'm not afraid, and I'm going to put my name on it. And I think that makes it more effective. It lets people know where the information is coming from. But yeah, look, I live in Sarasota. This is has become the MAGA capital of the world. All the people I'm targeting actually live in my town now. Charlie Kirk, Flynn, Patrick Byrne, they all live here. They've all moved here. So I live in the same town with these people I'm going after. Yeah. Wow.
Hey, it's a wide beach. It's a wide beach. That's the good news. Sarasota has big beaches. I'm really impressed with you. I'm so grateful that you would come here and discuss this. People who are listening and want to follow you, where should they go?
My name on Twitter, Ron Filipkowski with an F. That's my Twitter account. And the two people who help me are behind the scenes. I don't give their names out. And I'll tell you, they're two moms. One is a financial researcher, and one is really good at tracking people. And that's how we work as a team every single day.
All right. I will tweet momentarily so that everybody knows exactly how to find you on Twitter. And thank you. I really, really appreciate your being here. And hopefully you'll come back and keep us abreast of what you're uncovering.
Happy to do that.